Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur podcast. Today my guest is Vidya Ramachandran. Vidya is an entrepreneur, strategy consultant, and self-leadership enthusiast who catalyzes women to design vibrant lives free from the pressures of societal and cultural norms and expectations. She does this by helping them identify what success, fulfillment, and thriving looks like for them. She's a lover of human design, travel, musical theater, reader of cozy mysteries and romance novels, and a dancer. Hi, Vidya.
Hi, how are you, Bev?
I'm just great. Thank you very much. It's January the 9th. Have you been doing much dancing so far this year?
Dancing for me right now is just playing music and dancing around in my bedroom. If that's the best I can do, I will take that right now.
Dancing is like weather permitting, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Vidya, you help women create vibrant lives. What does that look like?
So the definition for vibrant lives for me, and what I love about it is it's very individual to the person, right? So part of the experience is understanding what we value, what some of what you shared in the intro of like what success really looks like, or fulfillment or thriving looks like, what really vitalizes us, and bringing that all together to I think of it as like, if you think about like a really vibrant technicolor environment versus a very black and white gray
Gotcha.
environment.
Right, right. And how do we get that? I guess first of all, how do we even know what that is for us?
So that's the exploration bit, right? So, because a lot of us, I mean, this is how I started. I graduated from school and started my first job, and I had my little checklist of, okay, I need to do this, 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 buy a home to get to this, like find this type of job, all of that. And really, for me, what struck is one day I was sitting at work and I saw that black and white, gray, dusty. It felt like a very like desolate landscape pop into my mind. And I was just about to turn 30. I think I was like 29, 30 at the time. And all I could think is like, is this the end of my story? Like, is this the next 30 to 40 years? I'm just going along this path to the horizon. And I've like really felt a visceral reaction in my body. And I think that's what a lot of since we're not taught to pay attention to and listen to our bodies and see all of these, like connect to all the signals that we're getting. That to me was my one wake up call, even though at the time I didn't know what that actually was or what it meant. It was looking back, that was my first one of many wake up calls to say, hey, there's something off here. Like, is there, because on paper and actually from a day to day perspective, I had a pretty, I was enjoying my life. I had a group of friends, and yet something was missing and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and my body knew.
Interesting. What was missing?
For me, I was really understanding that all of the things I had been checking off were things that I thought I had to. I would get to one stage and then somebody would say, like, okay, so now the next stage is, you have to do this. You have to go to grad school. Oh, you've been renting for so long. It's time to buy a house or buy a condo. And so I was like moving along and checking off all of these things. And I realized that what later, after many ups and downs and twists and turns, what I was missing was just feeling free to really express my creativity in the way that I wanted. And I want to preface that by saying, like, yes, I was still doing dancing. I was still like, I was learning music at the time. I was ice skating. So there were pockets here and there. But it was bringing more of that into the forefront and really sitting with like, what do I want my life to look like if I didn't have any of these rules that I had to follow?
Right. And I mean, you're spending 8 hours a day at whatever said job it was. So you can only go dancing, or draw pictures kind of in your spare time or whatever it is. You want to be doing something in that big chunk of time that that expresses yourself. Now, it could can still be creative. I mean, you can be an accountant and
Mhm.
it's creative, but is that right for you? Is still the question, right?
Yes. And the other thing, what I've come to realize is it's also, we go through different seasons of life and we go through different phases of life. So what vibrant living means can shift over time as we have gained different experiences and move through different life stages, and that's okay. And I think part of it for me was not realizing that, oh, there are opportunities. Yes, at 30, this does not mean that I'm going to stay stagnant. And that was the biggest thing for me, is this fear of staying stagnant for the next however many decades.
Sure. I mean, you're only 30. You're going, I got till 60 at least to be
Yeah.
sitting here. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that the young folk today are more and more like this? You know, I mean, when I had jobs, I don't know how many jobs I took because it seemed like the logical thing to do. And I would feel okay about it, but then I'd be sitting, once I got the job, okay, great, I got the job. Now I'm sitting in it. Uh-oh.
Yes.
But I feel like these younger generations are coming into the world already, keen to that. They already know that that's not going to work for them.
It's very interesting because I've since then I'm now in my mid 40s. So I've had a lot of experiences, like I said, and I've been able to talk to a lot of people at different stages in their life and different stages of their career. And I do come across, I think there still is a sense of, oh, we have to have this all figured out. And that's been coming across in various conversations. This stress, I think, that comes with, okay, now I'm in my mid 20s. I need to have it figured out. And so I've been gently reminding people that I talk to that where I was at 25, I could not have imagined that I would be where I am now. And it wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't allowed myself to kind of take it a step at a time or a phase at a time and be open to experimenting and things not working out. And, I moved geographically, I've moved, in the last, it's now been like 5 years. I think I've moved four times, four times in a 4.5 year period.
That's
I've
that's no
that
fun.
that was an experience, a learning experience in itself. Um, and it really made me very aware that how much simplicity I crave in my life. Um, but
Right.
yeah, I think there's just this sense of we have to figure it all out so that we're settled and we're set. And the word settled is something that I came up against a lot in culturally as well, is that, okay, we need to be settled, quotes. But what does that actually mean?
I think that's a construct made up by somebody else so they don't have to worry about you.
Yes.
So they don't have to worry.
Yes. Yeah, that is highly possible.
Well, it's a process, right? You can't have it all figured out at 20. It's just not going to happen. And if you think it is, it's probably not.
Yeah, I think there is that sense of this yeah, I think there's a sense of also we're not taught to experiment. Like I'm going to come back to that point
Yeah.
is that, failure has such a big weight on it. And I felt that myself, when I was, about 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I ended up leaving a PhD program after I started, 2 years before, 16 months before. And and for me, I was like, oh, I went in thinking like this is going to be now the new trajectory. And I had figured it all out. I was going to get this doctoral degree. I was going to be able to teach. I would have a PhD, like the value of that would come with having that degree. And when I realized that it just wasn't a fit for me and it wasn't working, and that, like I said, that took a while for me to really notice the changes in myself, even of how miserable I was and how much I was struggling with it. Uh, I had to really it took a lot of time for me, a couple years afterwards, where I really started being able to reframe how I even thought of that experience of saying I needed to leave. And I used to say, oh, I failed at it. I thought I was supposed to be able to do this. Like, what does it mean about me if I can't do this? And it actually, once I started reframing that for myself as like, well, it wasn't a fit. What did I learn from it? What can I take with me as I make future decisions? That's really what started helping me to look at it more as a lesson and an experiment rather than I was supposed to do this and I failed. And now what? And what does that say about me? And I think we don't give ourselves necessarily, or we're not taught to give ourselves that ability to try something and then pivot gracefully, right?
Exactly. You're supposed to go into every one of these things and be a fantastic success and do spectacularly in every single one of them. Well,
Yeah.
I thought we were here to learn lessons. I thought we were
Yeah.
here to figure stuff out. So how are you going to do that if everything is a complete success? But of course, at the time when you're so-called failing at it, you don't see it that way. It's
Yeah. Yes.
especially women, I think.
Yes. I think we're much harder on ourselves.
Exactly. Spend so much time, worrying about what everybody else, you know, thinks, needing to take care of them at the same time as doing all this. So it's a big burden, I think, for
Yes.
women.
Yes.
So what tools do you use? I know you have quite a few interesting things in your toolbox that you use to help people sort of, I guess, get back into alignment or get into
Yes.
alignment um, with, I don't know, with what?
With who they are, I think. I think the whole crux of how I look at this is if we can get to learn or reconnect back to who we are, then we have the ability to make decisions that are in much more alignment to us than we would have otherwise. And so a lot of what I use in my toolkit is I either bring in, so I spent a good portion of my career in market research and strategy and working in different industries and contexts. And so I like to bring in some of what I've gleaned from those perspectives and like how to ask questions and how can we get to not just the mental like how would we answer this logically, but how can we answer it from like how we feel and connect to our bodies? And so one of the things I love to do is help people just start feeling into how decisions feel, or I keep using the word feel, but like paying attention to how decisions feel in their body or choices or options feel in their body. So I do a lot of, reconnecting that way. I like to bring in elements, principles of human design. I have been learning about my human design for about probably 4.5 years now, and I have found that so interesting and helpful in understanding why it just validates a lot of the things that I couldn't figure out why I might have learned this way or taken in information this way, or my energy was a certain way. And so I like to bring in some of those high level principles into my toolkit when I'm working with clients. And then cyclical living has also been another huge game changer for me. I learned about that from an astrologer named Jen Rasiopi, and then in a group called Origin that was run by Kate Northrup, and just learning how my energy flows with my menstrual cycle, or you can track against the lunar cycle if you don't have a menstrual cycle, and just learning when my energy is at a natural low versus a natural high, and then using that to start changing how I approach the activities and my schedule. It's really helped me personally not beat up on myself as much.
Yeah.
And so I love bringing those principles in with clients to just help them learn, rediscover who they are and how their natural rhythms work as a
Right. And
starting point.
take take advantage of whatever is going on there, use it to the best advantage. Um,
Yeah.
so with human design, just for those who aren't too familiar, can you tell us what it is in a nutshell? I know it's kind of
Well,
hard.
what I've taken it because it's a much vaster
It's pretty,
system than
there's
I
a lot
could
to
go
it. Yeah.
into. I am by no means a human design reader or any of, like I've just studied just some high level things,
Mhm.
but it is a system that brings together 4 or 5 philosophies. So I know the chakra system is one of them, astrology is tied into that, I Ching, Kabbalah, and I think there's one more, and I can't remember that off the top of my head. But it basically looks at you need your birth information and birth time and place to be able to just generate a chart. So the thing I like about it is I feel with personality tests, which are, a lot of people like personality tests, I feel like depending on how I feel that way, that day, I can change how I respond to personality tests. Whereas this is a static, um, it's a static, um,
Yeah, because it's based on your
it's based on your
birth
birth. So it is static.
information.
Yeah. So it's static. And you can learn more about what type of general energy type you have. There's about there's 5 energy types. And then you can learn about what your decision making, your natural decision making process is. And so, for example, mine, I have an emotional solar plexus authority. So um, for me, that means when I come to a decision point, give myself time to let the emotional highs and lows kind of even out before I jump in the excitement or in the, say yes to something because I'm super excited or say no to
Right.
something because I'm not. And then 3 days later, I'm like, wait, why did I make that decision?
Right.
Whereas some other people might have one that is very much like they hear the options and they get a very immediate like yes or no response to it in their gut almost. And so that gives you information like that. And it tells you like, oh, if you have a certain emotion, like so example for me, um, the like my guidepost or something, for lack of a better word, is anger. So if I feel anger, that's like a sign for me to hold on, pause, take a step back, and kind of evaluate what is out of alignment there. Whereas what I'm really, again, with my energy type looking for is to feel peace. So that's the opposite of the anger.
Mhm.
So this, I mean, like I said, there are several people out there who really dive in and do a great job of explaining human design. So if any of the listeners are interested in kind of exploring it, highly recommend just checking out. I know Erin Claire Jones is someone who does a lot. And then there's another group called De Luna. It's 2 women who work together that I've looked at their things, and there's even some people that are very focused on energy types. If you want to even dig in even deeper, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
you could very easily go down a rabbit hole.
It's very interesting that you can extrapolate all that from birth information. Like I can see it for astrology because you're looking at stuff that's was going on. But with human design, yeah, it's intriguing that you know all that kind of thing is imbued in you from birth.
From spirit. Yeah, like it's your spirit decides. I mean, that's what they say is your spirit decides when you are born, right? So when you decide to be born. So it's interesting. And as with anything, I always say take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And
Exactly.
it's another piece of information that you could use.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people that use human design also complement it with
Mhm.
astrology readings, which makes total sense.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I think you just have to be aware of that these things. A lot of people aren't even aware that you can do these things, and it's not like it's expensive or something. It doesn't take
Yeah.
a lot of time. But if you spend a little bit of time working on that kind of thing, it really, gives everybody tools in their toolbox to just survive, to,
Yes.
to not just survive, but thrive, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Um, so do you work with business owners to help get more clients, get manifest more success in business?
So what I do with business owners is so I work with women in any context, and I really focus on that initial piece of, okay, something just feels off. I'm almost at a point where I might want to burn it all to the ground because I don't know what's going on. And so I like to come in where that little let's pause and really do a little bit of investigation, like I was saying. And I'm what I call my vibrant living, a vibrant living blueprint. Let's pull together these pieces so that you have this foundational, knowing of who you are and what's really important to you and what your elements of success are, like we were talking about. And then from there, we can kind of move into the recalibration piece of what is it that's not aligned and how can we recalibrate. And from that point, you might say, you know what, I do want to work with this other person that focuses on this piece, and that might be some specific business piece, right? So I like to come in where I think it's like we work on this initial piece of getting to know who you are and what's important to you and what your values are, and pulling that all together, and how can you create your environment. That's another thing I love to do, is look at environment and see how can we set up your environment so it is nourishing and it is restorative and it is what you need it to be, to show up. And then you can take that and, if it's in relation to relationships or business or whatnot, then there's so many, and I have my go-to people that I trust to send to refer people to, but there
Gotcha.
are also so many others.
Gotcha. And how do you get clients yourself?
So my work has, for the most part, been through referral. So I find that that's really what works really well for me, because I liken it to, if someone's referring you, they know the energy and the vibe of both people, and they know you would get along and that you would be a good, partners in working together. And so that's where I tend to get more of my clients, and also tend to have more of the success with the clients
Well,
is through
sure,
referral.
sure, because it bypasses any possibility of competition because you know, if it's a referral, then that person already has your vibe and knows that you're going to be a good fit. So it totally makes sense. I did want to ask you, when you were saying, somebody feels like, oh, something's missing. What's a what's a good hint that something is actually missing, other than sitting there thinking something's missing? You don't always know consciously.
Yeah. Like what sparks that, oh, maybe I should investigate this bit, right? With
Yeah.
something. What I like to think is there's this just like you might notice that there's just this nagging feeling of frustration. Or for me, one of the things was, I still remember this very clearly. I used to work in a very international based team. So we would have people coming in from different countries and then going back to their countries. And I had this moment where one of my colleagues was going back to the UK, and she was telling me this, and I had this moment of like, everyone's changing around me, and I'm still it's the coming back to that stagnant piece. Right. So there's clues in how we are interacting with people and what we're thinking in those interactions. And it's almost like looking at those interactions as the breadcrumbs to say, okay, if I'm feeling this way, then something's off here, perhaps, and then let me investigate that a little bit more. So if you're
Exactly.
feeling a little bit of frustration, maybe it is anger, maybe it is a sense of like feeling a little lost, or just not sure why. If it feels like your life isn't together, like all of these different things, when a lot of the times when we're seeing other people, it's almost like that mirror of what we're missing or what we're not feeling, right? That difference that we're
Exactly.
sensing.
Yeah, that's a great example of when you were seeing people doing all these things. Well, if you were totally happy and in the right place where you're supposed to be, you wouldn't give that a thought, right? It
Yeah.
wouldn't bother you, but all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. Something bothers me about that.
Yes, yes. And that's it is because you also don't want to get caught in this comparison cycle, right? Because that that happens a lot in the South Asian culture, and as with I'm sure many other cultures where we're like, oh, so we're told by our parents, so and so's child is doing this and so and so's child is
Oh,
doing
yeah,
that. And so that used to, when you hear that a lot, you're like, oh, this is where I should be because everybody else around me is doing this. And but yet, is that what you really want? Right. So there's that side of it too, is making sure like, yes, if you're feeling something, it's a signal to look into it more, but it's to see like, wait, is that what you want? Or is that what you think you want? And do you really want it?
exactly. Do you have an example of someone that you've worked with that that totally pivoted?
Well, I mean, one of the clients that I worked with recently in the last year, she actually went from working to taking some time off to be a stay-at-home mom with her two young children, and she had the ability to do so, but a lot of it was going through the identity, like who am I if I'm not working? And
Yeah,
that's a whole lot of work in that right there.
that's interesting. Yeah, because our identities are so tied up in what we do. And if you come to great for her, good on her for coming to the realization that it just that job or whatever it was, just it wasn't what she wanted to be doing at all. Like,
At that time,
yeah.
right? And that's again why I want to come back to like it's very much looking at it from a season and a phase that we're in. And
Mm,
it's okay if we pivot back and forth. Because I think that's the other thing. I think in culturally, especially as business owners, we're like, okay, we're on this path. We're supposed to be down this. We're never supposed to think about working in a full-time job again. There may be some time where we want to or we need to. And it's, I think, realizing that it's okay to make those pivots.
yeah, giving
And
yourself
then,
permission.
yeah.
Exactly. That's so cool. Um, I know that you have well, let me before we do that, we're going to do a card reading, which I think is so cool. But I just want to ask you what would be your primary message for the audience today in a nutshell?
Mm. I'm going to come back to my number one philosophy, which is that life is a series of experiments.
Yeah, and don't be afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. You can always pivot.
You can always pivot.
If you need an example, I am here to be one for you of how many
Exactly.
pivots I've done in my life.
Exactly. Failure is good. Failure
Yeah.
is helping you realize what is going on
Yeah.
and where you should really be. Awesome. Well, I know you do oracle cards, so should
Yes.
we draw a couple of cards for whoever's
Yes.
listening
Yes.
today?
So I want to preface this by saying that when I was always very intrigued by Oracle cards, but I was very much in my head, even talking about intuition more in general, I was very much in my head about like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't like, there's a process I have to learn. Um, and then I just, was talking to some people and it was just like, no, that's if it's, it's just play with it, right? Coming back to experimenting with it, right? Just like play with it and just allow whatever message has to come through. And there's always going to be some piece of it, even if it feels like a really odd card, there's going to be some piece that resonates in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if anyone's interested, so the reason I bring that up is if anyone is interested in playing with these yourself, what I would recommend is maybe if there's a bookstore around you that sells Oracle cards, or like one of my mentors recommended I go to Amazon and just start typing in Oracle cards and looking up to see what caught my eye. And that's where I got these two.
Nice.
One is The Oracle of the Fairies by Karen Kay, and the other one is The Sacred Forest by Denise
Beautiful.
Lynn. And then just start playing with it is, you know.
Yeah.
So which one would you like to which one do you think
Oh my
would
gosh.
be
Let's
good?
let's do the forest
Okay.
because it's sacred.
Yes. Yes. Love this one. They're both really good. One is very like lighthearted. The fairies are very like fun and lighthearted, and this is also very deep, and the artwork is amazing. So, okay,
Mm.
so I'm going to shuffle these for a little bit.
Maybe we should do one of each.
We could. And we're going to see what the universe has to tell us today. I'm going to split these into three. Sometimes I just pick the top one or one that flies out, but I'm going to split it into three piles today. And then I'm going to ask you to pick one, two, and three.
Two.
Meandering pathway. It says flow, and I'll read what it says in the book.
Hey. Apropos.
I was talking about pivot.
Talking about pivoting.
Okay, so here it is. Meandering pathway, flow. As you saunter down the pathway, you are not sure what is around the next corner, but you're relishing the moment. You gaze at the interplay of light and dark of the leaves of the trees and inhale the fresh forest air. All is well. You know that you don't have to see your destination. All that is required is to enjoy the journey. When life presents you a meandering path rather than a straight shot to a goal, you can feel frustrated. You might bemoan the fact that the path seems aimless and roundabout and that you can't see what's ahead. On the other hand, you can just enjoy the voyage. If life right now seems to have some sinuous curves, bends, loops, and turns, don't despair. All is as it should be. This card is suggesting that you relinquish control to the path forward and just see where it takes you. You don't have to have all the answers to succeed. Wow. You don't need to know what tomorrow holds to have an astounding future. Simply sit back and enjoy the ride. You'll get to exactly where you need to be for your highest good. The spirit of the meandering pathway says, everything falls into place when you don't resist the flow of the meandering pathway of life. Allow the path to take you where you need to go. Don't hurry it or resist it. Simply let go, surrender, and enjoy the journey.
That is amazing. We could have just read that card and not had this conversation. I
That would
mean,
have been
it's
our
so
conversation.
right on.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my
That
gosh.
is, yeah, that's the like fun magic of it, right? Like I could not have I've not had that card come up before in all the times that I've pulled these cards.
Well,
And
and you know,
so
the two came like it yelled at me.
I love it. I love it because that's a perfect example of you using your intuition, right? In addition to me using like me trusting that the number that you're going to say was going to show a card that
Fact.
we needed to hear today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing. Pretty amazing. We don't need to
Yes.
add too much to that. But do you want to do a fairy card?
Yes, let's do a fairy card real quick.
I love cards.
Yes, highly recommend just having a fun card deck to play with
Yeah.
if someone here
You
doesn't
could
have
come
it
back and
already.
we could just do cards like for half an
Yeah. Okay. Let me just shuffle this a little bit more and then we can see what the universe has to say with this deck. Oops. Sometimes cards pop out. I'm going to just pull this out because it just flew out. The abundance card just flew out.
Beautiful.
And it says here, prepare yourself for incoming abundance. Release any mental blocks you may have. In fairyland and human land, there is enough abundance for everyone. And so, okay, but I'm gonna put that back in, and I'm gonna. So that's another way you could also pull a card. Is I'm in a co-working group with a couple other women, and one of the other women pulls cards every week for us, and it usually is. Oh, there's always a card that flies out
That
when
flies
she
out some
shuffles. So,
saying, hello, me.
yeah, yeah. So, okay. So again, one, two, or three.
I can go with two again.
Okay, let's see what this transformation. So this is the
Mm.
card.
Oh, how beautiful. Those are really
Yeah,
gorgeous.
yes. And there's butterflies and everything.
For those that are just listening, I'm sorry. I'll put the names of the decks in the show notes. You can pick them up or
Yeah.
go to Amazon and see how pretty they are. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
they're gorgeous. This is the transformation card, and this says this fairy tells you to surrender to a transformation in your life that's happening for your highest good. Embrace your transformation. The best is yet to come. And in the book says the
Similar.
cater. Ooh, this is interesting. The caterpillar has no idea it's about to transform into a beautiful butterfly. If you've drawn this card, the Fairy of Transformation has flown into your reading to remind you that you're transforming or are about to transform. Change can be challenging, but it can also be exciting as you witness your own beautiful transition into a new you. Butterflies are messengers from the fairy realm. So if you see a butterfly, be aware of what's going on for you in your life or what you were thinking when you saw the butterfly. The butterfly can act as a spiritual exclamation mark, highlighting the answer to the question you asked during the reading. Whatever your current circumstances, know that things are changing and transforming for the highest good for all. The
Hmm.
Fairy of Transformation wishes to remind you that change can be more amazing than we can ever imagine. When we let go and surrender to the natural changes that occur in our lives, the process of transformation can be a beautiful experience. Change and transformation can also have a ripple effect on those around us. Sometimes people resist change, making it an unpleasant and painful experience. So, seeing you willingly transform with love and trust may have a super positive influence on their personal experience of transformation. This fairy tells you which parts of yourself and your life are ready to transform. So, follow her lead and allow, trust, and flow. All is well.
Well, similar to the meandering path, but flying
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yes.
Well
Yes.
done. That was a beautiful message. And interesting is I heard somebody say something about caterpillars and butterflies just last night. And it
What
was
was it?
something along the line of the caterpillar, doesn't really know that it's a butterfly, that it, as far as it's concerned, it's still just the caterpillar,
Mhm.
but it has transformed. And of course it feels different, but it
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't see it the same way we do, I guess, is what it was.
Yeah. Well, that's true, right? Like so many times we can't see the changes in ourselves that others can see. And even some of the gifts that we have, we don't, it's hard for us to notice that about ourselves. And we kind of need someone else to be able to reflect that back to us.
Exactly. Exactly. To help us
Yeah.
pay attention
Yeah.
to what's going on. Well, Vijaya, how can people get in touch with you so they can
Well,
get sessions with you?
yeah, so I have a um twice a month I send out a postcard. So it's a newsletter, but I like the vibe of a postcard more. So it's
Okay.
postcards from Vidya. So you can we could I guess put the link in the show notes
Hmm.
to that. And I love to hear from people and just have conversations. It's where I share what I'm up to, the different experiments I'm doing, food for thought, events that I'm creating, and then yeah, and then I have my website is constantly being tweaked here and there, but that is also another place to find out what services I have going on. And one of my fun things is every once in a while I like to do dance parties like we were talking about. So dancing. So I've started this year deciding to offer just like a dance break every so often. So that kind of stuff you can find either if you're on my postcards list or on the website. And I'm also debating social media. I'm on Instagram but not really active, and I'm on LinkedIn but not really active. So exploring what that's going to look like in 2025.
Beautiful. That's great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here. It's
Thank you.
been really fun and
Yeah.
informative and inspiring.
Yes. It was a joy to be on here having this conversation. So thank you for inviting me.
Love it. All right. Well, we will see you anon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.